recently I've learned that the business I was trying to build had been sabotaged. I've been an advocate for children's rights now for my entire life, but the past few years I've been really pushing heavy on Facebook. Have even built up quite the following, educating the public on the reality of child abuse, and I mean all forms of child abuse, whether physical or mental or psychological or physiological or even sexual abuse. I've been trying to get people to understand that there are really serious consequences for children who are abused. I myself grew up in a home where abuse was permitted, but the talking about it was considered being unloyal. It was considered as being unloyal. And in my family, silence is the only thing that proved your loyalty. Bonus points if you were willing to ostracize and lie about and deny other people's experiences. From the ages of 3 to 18, I was molested by my stepfather. I don't remember anything between the ages of 3 to 10. To this day, I don't know if that is due to the abuse or if it's due to drowning when I was 11 years old. I'm pretty sure that it has to do with both of them. I'm almost in my 50s now, and it's only been less than 6 years since I've been aware that I have been living with PTSD and disassociation my whole life. And even though I left the home at 18, the only abuse that stopped was the sexual abuse. I think a lot of people are confused when it comes to molestation, especially in familiar families or familiar units. What I went through is termed Intra-Familial Captivity Abuse. And as far as I know, I turned my stepfather in the first time when I was 11 years old. It wasn't too long after I drowned, if I remember correctly. And I remember that the way that it all went down was not at all the way that I expected it to go down, considering the circumstances. I'm not going to get into that part of the story right now. Everything's going to come out in due time, and I might jump around a lot. That is due to my memories not always being available to me when I need them. Due to the abuse that I went through, my personality was pretty much not able to coalesce. It stayed fragmented. So I tend to jump around a lot, but I always make it to the point. From the ages of 10 to 18, everybody was aware that I was being sexually abused every day. I mean, the other abuse, people seem to think that when children are abused that it's only one type of abuse, but it's not how abuse works. If there's abuse going on in the house, there is every type of abuse. Abuse is abuse. It can't be put into categories. It can't be separated into different levels of harm or effects from it. It all has detrimental effects on the development of the child who is being abused. It can cause their mind and body to not be able to develop properly. A child who is being sexually abused, they usually they are being disconnected and disassociated from their body in order to be able to survive their reality, because no child should have to go through that. So when that is occurring on a daily, that child becomes completely disconnected from their souls. It's not the way the society has portrayed it to be. The effects of someone or of a child who has been abused in that way last for 4 generations. So whatever disconnections or developmental stunning that had happened in the child, those disconnections and developmental stunnings are going to be passed on to the next 4 generations, because that's how human beings work. That's how our DNA is passed on. That's how we mirror those that we are around the most. So when we were growing up with our parents, if our parents are not fully conscious, they have unresolved trauma, that their nervous system is going to affect ours in the same way. Like for me, I had 2 children and I wasn't aware that when I disassociated, it caused their nervous system to react naturally, because they felt the disconnect and they didn't feel safe. So, you know, there are so many effects that can happen from just one child being abused that can affect the family line for generations to come. And when we come from a society that has encouraged silencing victims and survivors like myself, and rally around and protecting the pedophiles and abusers, to the point where family is outright hating on the child for speaking out. And this happens way too often. This has happened way too often. The black sheep of the family, or the one in the family who the other rest of the family doesn't like, is usually the one who is spoken up, is usually the one who sees the dysfunction and the turmoil and the abuse that is going on in the family, and they will not stop talking about it because they know it's not right. So the only way you can get people to not listen to someone is to smear their name. My family has treated me as if I was the child predator all these years. Straight up, that's what it was. It was like the roles were reversed. They still praise the man who created this entire mess. The fact that it wasn't just our family he had ruined, plus his family, his sister's family, his brother's families. You know, this man was total destruction, and he plowed through family after family, and nobody ever stood up to him. Until me. So when I stood up, and I wouldn't stop talking about it, people started to hate me. And I'm talking about towns. Like, there's the town I grew up in. Can't stand that I talk about it, because they know that they were complicit in everything that happened to me. People don't like it when you shine a light on things that they think that they've kept hidden or buried about themselves. But the truth always comes out. And If you're hiding or actively trying to downplay a situation in order to save your own ass, what does that say about you? You know, the family that I grew up with, I can't even have a conversation with. Every time I've tried to ask for help, I'd end up getting kicked out of the house. They would come over and like literally mob me. I don't know if you've ever been victim of a family mobbing, but let me tell you, when somebody or when a whole family is intent on keeping a secret and their part in that secret, they will make it look like the only problem is you. I stopped going to family functions years ago because it never turned out good for me. Because I couldn't have a normal conversation with somebody, because as soon as they see my face, they feel automatically guilty, so they're not even hearing anything I'm saying, and it always ends up in a fight. And they end up, you know, screaming at me and telling everybody I'm the problem. But I was never the problem. The only problem was me speaking up and not shutting up about the abuse that I went under for the past 40-some years. I have family that had been actively working against me because they're afraid of people finding out that they allowed a child to be abused, and then they abused that child for the next 30 years. And unfortunately, this happens to way too many people. That aunt and uncle you kept their distance from the family, there's always a good reason for that. But instead of looking at themselves, apologizing, and doing what's right, they just continue to pass on the cycle to the next generation. I'm not close to any of my family. The cousins all look at me like there's something wrong with me because their parents taught them to not trust me, because that's what they were taught. And they've been trying to keep me silent ever since. I know that they are a part of whatever happened to my advocacy on Facebook. Someone did that, and they decided that they were going to destroy my chances at what I was trying to accomplish. Despite the fact that what I was trying to accomplish wasn't even for me, it was for children. But that didn't matter to them because they didn't want me getting my story out. So here I am, telling my story, because that's what I was told to do. Until next video, thanks for listening.